Hello, and welcome to another video. And in this one, I'm doing a behemoth swatching of all my old paints that are gathering dust in the front room junk, where everything you love goes to die sort of room that I'm sure we all have in our houses. If you've been watching me for a while, you know that I'm trying to go through all my art supplies while I kickstart this journey back into creating art. And today I'm tackling paints, mostly acrylic paints, though there are a few other random bits and pieces that have been thrown in this drawer. And I'm starting with this brand called Pro Paint. As you saw, some of them have never been opened. They may have only been $3 from the Reject Shop, which is a sort of bargain store. We can get things very cheap, and you can see that in the quality of the paint. It's very cheap paint, though I will say I absolutely love the glitter here. It is so glittery. I absolutely love that, and I'm definitely going to be using that, and I will probably use the other paints when messing around, but I will not be buying any more. That's good because I have plenty. Next, I have these paints that I know not much about other than that they have a label on it that says artists. I assume this came in a set, probably with blue, black, and white, but they were nowhere to be found. I assume they've been thrown out, and as you can see, these paints definitely need to go the way of the bin as well. The red paint is completely dried up, completely unusable. The green is separating, and the yellow is extremely, extremely gritty. So unfortunately, these paints, they may have been a lot better back when they were brand new, but I have no idea how long I've had these. And they are unusable these days. Next up, I have these paints from Craft, which is a craft shop franchise here in Australia. I don't know if it's elsewhere, but it is a decent craft supply shop. I can definitely say these paints they're decent paint. They're not a very good, not a very professional quality. I wouldn't use them in anything that I may want to sell, but right now I'm not looking to sell paints. I just want to have a good time, so they will suit me fine. I don't know if I will buy more from the Craft brand though, which is the same for this Art Valley. I don't know if I will buy more, but I might. I might of this one. I quite like the richness of the color. So it's definitely a good amateur paint brand. Now this Deco Art Glamour Dust, it is another glitter paint, but I don't like it as much. Obviously I got it because I liked the different color background, but it doesn't have a true striking glitter so much as it just looks like a gritty red paint. I think I'll still use it because I like the idea of playing with textures, which I'll talk more about as we get into some different things. But it is not as sparkly as I want from a glitter paint, as I'm a little obsessed with glitter and shimmer and sparkle, which is where this Pebbo Color is fantastic. It is a stunning silver. Now I know this brand is really good on surfaces that aren't your paper and canvas as well, but I haven't used it that way myself, as this is one of the older paints that belonged to my mother. Now there are a few paints from my mom that have ended up in this tub. They all just sort of got thrown in together, so I'm going through everything. So I don't know necessarily everything about the paints. But this here, the Semco matte acrylic paint, it has a really nice finish, though I do believe that I've seen much better matte acrylic paints, much better quality. I don't know if I'll buy more of that brand, but I'm happy to mess around with them. Now these Sullivan paints, I think they're starting to go a little funny. No matter how I mix them up, there's still a little oddness to the way their consistency. Maybe they came that way, maybe they have just gotten old. That is the unfortunate reality when you let art supplies rot, pretty much. Now this Little Bird matte chalk paint. The Pink Ballet is still really lovely and has a lovely finish, like a chalky, interesting texture. But the snow has turned to a almost claggy paste-like consistency, and it tore my poor little brush apart. It can easily be glued back on, but this is just a cheap brush that I'm more than happy to get rid of at the end of all this. But I'm actually intrigued by the paste consistency, so I think I'll keep that for at least a little while to see what I can come up with in terms of that paste, and see how we how we go from there. What I will not be keeping is this Polymark glitter paste. It's completely dried up, completely unusable. That's very unfortunate, but it is old, and that happens. What is amazing, though, is this white pearl. It is so shiny, and I can't wait to use it more. What I never want to use again is this Maker Lamp Black. I didn't like this paint when I brought it. It has a really strange, stringy consistency that I don't think shows up too well on camera. But there's, a stringiness to the paint, which I really, really dislike. I should have thrown it out, but I have a really bad habit of keeping things that I have spent money on, which is much the same as this glitter paint. It is sad with the glitter. Like, there is not a lot of glitter in that. And, it aggravates me. Lincraft is another one of those craft brands local to Australia, and it just really let me down with their glitter paint. Now these little jars, these cute little jars, are very interesting as I know nothing about them. They're completely unbranded. I don't recall ever buying them, and when I asked my mom, she has no recollection of them. So they just turned up in our paint drawer, and they are largely completely dry and unusable, which is a shame because they look like really nice colors. But like I said, this happens when you let your art supplies sit and languish. I will say the gold is slightly usable. It is another paste-like consistency, so I will keep it just to see what I can do with that. But I think it doesn't have long left. Like, it needs to be used soon before it turns into its sibling paints, completely dry and unusable. Alas, I'm very sad. I do like my metallics. If you watched my last video, I went through all the Montmartre metallics, except for a few which will come up here and I'll explain their difference. But as you can see, there's a range of different textures and consistencies, and a sad lack of sparkle in that in that glitter paint, I should say. But these dry brush stencil paints, they were my mother's, and they are completely dried up. When they say dry brush, I don't think they mean this dry. It is unfortunate because they look like lovely colors, but they are beyond salvageable. Nothing I added to them would get them to come alive again. So that is unfortunate. But they are quite old. They were my mother's that she used when I was young, or perhaps even before I was born. But yes, they are also going in the bin. Now these are the other Montmartre paints. Now they are a pouring acrylic paint, so they are very, very fluid. I brought these because I was looking for a range of metallic colors, and they were super cheap. They were originally $25, and I think I got them at a quarter of the price because they're having a big old sale. Because they are a pouring paint, they are really, really thin. So they weren't quite what I was looking for, but I still really like them. And I love when I add like metallic paint to my little shot glass of water. It just looks like a magic potion that honestly I really do want to drink, but I know that it's really bad. Don't drink your paint water. Don't do that. Even if it looks like a magic potion, probably especially if it looks like a magic potion. But these are really lovely pigmented paints. I really like them. I'll still use them, and I might even try paint pouring, though it intimidates me. Now this Deverant student paint was a lot of what I actually used in high school. So I did grab some of these. These are more expensive paints, even in their student range. They also do have a professional range, which are a better quality. But I quite like these paints. What I don't like about it is that the gold is such a brown gold. When I want a gold, I want it to be really, really gold. I can make it darker by adding different colors myself, but it's hard to make it a bright, shiny gold. So, alas, it is a muted gold. However, the burnt sienna is a lovely color. I use that a lot. It's probably one of my best quality paints. And I know my mom is using it in her modeling a lot because it's so good. It's such a rich base color. It makes really, really, really good accents and whatnot for her models. Now this is the only gouache you're going to see here. I didn't even realize we had these. They are my mom's when I was a child, or before I was born. I am not quite sure. So they are at least 20 years old, if not older. I won't say my exact age because a woman never reveals that. But as you can see, the name of that one is completely gone. So I'm just assuming it's reddish because that's the color it looks to me. These other ones, they still have their labels. They're still readable. It's green oxide and amethyst. But they are very much at the end of their life, and they're not the easiest to use. Another good thing about gouache is you add water and it does come alive again. But it's still quite tricky to use, and as I'm showing here, you definitely need to mix up your paints before you just get it all over your hands and it's separating. I think I've actually kept these for now. I probably shouldn't have. It's not exactly necessary, but I really struggle to throw things out. But these are the Joe Saunier's acrylics. Now Joe Saunier is a quite well-known brand, I believe, and they are fairly good paints. Now there's a mix here of new ones and like only a few years old and really, really old ones. Both mine and my mother's, and you can tell the difference between them by the logos. The older ones have a Art Deco style logo with flowers, and the modern ones have a spin on the color wheel. But what is really good is that most of the older paints are still really, really keeping it alive. They are holding it together even after all these years. So that is really good. Go Joe Sauniers. But yeah, it's just one of those things where this paint is quite easy to come by, and so we have gotten a fair bit of it from different periods. I will say the beige there is also another paste-like consistency. Sorry, the provincial beige, I should say. And so I added a bit of water just to see what would happen, but it is not gouache, so it doesn't have that same, it doesn't come alive again when you add the acrylic, when you add the water to the acrylics the same way. You can do it in small doses, but you don't want to water it down too much. But it's just interesting to sort of play around with those sort of things and to see what happens. Now there are a lot of different like names for different bits and pieces. It's like Joe Saunia's Artist Colors Velvet Matte, Joe Saunia's Fine Artist Paint Matte Flow, and I don't really know whether that's due to the change over time, what they've called it, because some of these are significantly older than the others, or if there's an actual difference in how the paint consistency is. I don't notice so much a difference, but that is because some of these are significantly older and age does affect liquids. in most forms, paint or otherwise. I mean, why do they age wine for so long, you know? But these are really good paints. I quite like Joe Sauniers. They are a good, they're not a amazing paint brand, but I quite like them, and I'm happy to have them. I'm happy to have dug them out, and I will use them again. And as you can see, I haven't bothered to fix my paintbrush, so it's a little annoying. I am my own worst enemy when it comes to things like this. I don't make my life easier, which is ridiculous. But I am working on just making sure that everything is easier to access, so I will be able to use the things that I have and not just have it all get lost. But yeah, back to the paint. As you can see there, it is a little transparent with the yellow orange. You can see the graphite bottom of the G coming through, so it's a little transparent. I have found recently that I'm really interested in your very, very dense acrylic paints. So depending on the brands, they have like different names for that, but I prefer your thicker ones to your thin ones. Now here's like my favorite thing that I went through. These paints are older than me. They were what my mom used to paint decorations in the nursery before I was born. So these paints are quite old. Again, I'm not saying my age. You can guess. Don't guess in the comments. I don't want to know how old you think I am. But they are folk art by Plaid, and they, a large part, still work. They have a lot of separation. You just gotta mix them up and they're fine. And then some of them have almost like the paint has turned to like rubber seals in the top, which is very interesting. And it was way too much fun to play with to pull that off. I know that is not how you want your paint to go, but it was actually really fun. I think I need to get some of that, like, different, what are they even called? Like your goop that you play with, that are textured things that kids play with. I don't even know what I'm saying. Now this top was a bit harder. It was more like a hard rubber. But again, the paint on the inside was still usable below this. So that's kind of fascinating. This paint is so old and still functional and still quite nice, which is the crazy part. Like, it's not really gritty. It's still really nice, and it was bought for $2.95 from Spotlight back in the day. Some of them were $3.75, so $2.95 or $3.75 depending on the paint. And Spotlight is another one of those big craft brands. Now this was the, I think, only paint from the range that was completely unusable. It was completely dried up. And it was this plasticky, weird textured thing. It was, again, too much fun to play with. Some of them had gone a bit claggy inside, but they were still usable. They were not so great, and they're not paste like the other ones that I really want to play with. They're not so paste-like. They're just kind of weird, but generally you can actually like pull those bits out and have decently functioning paint that is 20 plus years old. So that is actually really cool. I'm really impressed by this. I didn't expect for a lot of these to still be working. I thought that they would largely be dried up. But no, they're still good. They're still good to go. So that's really impressive. So good job, Folk Art by Plaid, and good job to whoever manufactured those bottles, because they have a significantly good seal. Like, they are impressive to keep for so long. But yes, I think I started explaining. So Spotlight is another one of those big brands. I think it's international now. Perhaps not. I don't know. But it is, yeah, a massive franchise here for crafting stuff. Um, and it is where you go. Most things craft-wise that you're interested can be found there. Fabric, paint, beads. They even have homeware stuff now, so not just like your cushions and curtains and blankets, but other homeware stuff. I know there's candles, got cups. There's a whole range of stuff. It's a very, very versatile store, and I really quite like it. But I have noticed that at least when it comes to art supplies, it's significantly more expensive than other places. So keep that in mind. If Spotlight is your only option, obviously go there. But you may find that you can get stuff that is at Spotlight cheaper elsewhere. Now there was 2 Licorice Black, as you can see there. One of them is significantly better than the other. And this last paint, this dark grey, is a paste-like consistency, which is not a necessarily a bad thing for me. I am interested in that, but look at how good these paints are. Except for obviously where I splattered some crumbs and couldn't get it off. There are a few oddballs in there, but generally for significantly older paint, it's really, really good. Now to wrap off, I just have some white paints, and this got this Reeves Fine Artist paint, and it is a really good paint, but it's also quite new. Like, this is a quite recent purchase. By recent, I mean maybe 2 years old? I don't know. And yes, I also have Dulux Vivid White in a small jar. That is the house paint. It's a tester box that I brought, and then I decided to just use in art, and it has gone the way of the paste. But I really quite like it. Uh, maybe I should look into some actual pastes. That might be better. But I'm just gonna play around with what I have. So I'm really happy to have gone through all these, and I'm happy with how much is still functional, still surviving, and working. After all this time. It's actually really, really, really impressive. So I'm thinking maybe I'll do a video using just the folk art paint because it is so old, and going through, you know, this old paint, seeing what I can create with that. But I'm not too sure yet. I'm still just sort of playing around, making a lot of mess, but I'm really happy with this. No, it's been really good, and I have actually got a little bag of things I'm throwing out. I know, shock horror, I'm actually throwing things out. Oh, goodness gracious, why is that so hard? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. And if I'm lucky, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!